kindly, I'm joined at this moment by Ashok Malik, well-known political commentator. Ashok, given the kind of outpouring of support we've seen for Dr. Singh and for his various achievements over the past 48 hours, do you think that prophecy that Manmohan Singh had, that history would judge me more kindly than the image that had got built towards the end of UPA 2? Do you think that process has already started?
Look, Rahul, obviously in the immediate aftermath of a tragedy of this nature, of somebody with such an illustrious life passing away, there is we tend to see the good rather than the flaws. Dr. Singh's personal life and personal CV are remarkable, truly remarkable. His biggest achievement, I would say, is that of a self-made man. He represented the challenge, the tragedy, the trauma of the partition community, both in Bengal and in Punjab, especially in Punjab, we saw a lot of violence in 1947. He came to India with his father with virtually nothing, and through sheer dint of hard work and scholarship, made it to the highest office in the country. That is a remarkable story, irrespective of where you stand vis-a-vis the Congress, the BJP, his politics, any of that. And that is the primary cause or trigger for much of the affection and much of the admiration with which he's seen. His career is a long and distinguished one. It has great achievements. In his term as finance minister in the 1991 to 96 period, he turned around India's economy and laid the foundations of the modern Indian economy. Between 2004 and 2014, quite honestly, he was a very deft custodian of Indian foreign policy, a great diplomat, did a lot for India's international positioning, especially with the nuclear deal. His achievements as Prime Minister and as an economic policy maker in that period are much more checkered. Nevertheless, a man's life or a human being's life is a mix of attributes and failures. All of us have failures. In the larger picture, Dr. Singh's achievements far outweigh his failures.
Sure. And I think also a lot of the recent public memory of Dr. Manmohan Singh, and I want to welcome Sanjay Jha to this broadcast, was coloured or shaped by what happened in the last years of UPA 2. I think his passing has given everyone an opportunity to zoom out, look at a long life and some of those massive achievements. The liberalisation, a lot of people talk about building a new India through his policies of economic liberalisation by breaking down the protectionist state in the way that it existed earlier, and through the strategic nuclear deal with the United States. He really did shape, he's one of the makers of modern India, and I think his passing has really given people an opportunity to reflect on the entire length of his journey rather than just all the scams and corruptions towards the end of his tenure.
Rahul, absolutely. And I remember that I actually started appearing on behalf of the Congress on television, largely because I remember a conversation that you had with me one day late in the evening when the UPA was getting badgered left, right and center. And you said, Sanjay, you must come more often on television. So I need to publicly tell you that my baptism as becoming a public face of the Congress began largely because of you. But yeah, I think when you look at Dr. Manmohan Singh's entire tenure, Rahul, one aspect that I want to talk about is the fact that today when you hear of direct benefits transfer or Aadhaar or GST, and I want to mention these three in particular, they have revolutionized I would think distribution of welfare to the common man on the streets and different villages across the country. And the architecture of that was built during the time that Dr. Manmohan Singh was Prime Minister. And I think that is one visionary outlook that needs to be perhaps more focused on, because he realized that the world was becoming more digital and technological friendly, and you needed to get rid of corruption and intermediaries out of the system, the middlemen as we call them. So if you look at the success of the Jan Dhan or this whole, the jam trinity as Mr. Modi's government calls it, that whole architecture, the whole structure was built during the time that Dr. Manmohan Singh, along with Nandan Nilekani and Montek Singh Ahluwalia, saw through the whole concept of distribution of welfare to the common man as to be driven by a more technocratic, a more solid infrastructure of delivery. That to me has been...
Let me pause you and put that same question to Ashok Malik, because there will be lots in the Congress ecosystem there'll be many in the Congress ecosystem who will say this morning that he was wrongly pilloried by the opposition, by the BJP while they were in opposition for things which Prime Minister Modi and this government have picked up and raced with. Things like Aadhaar, things like Manrega, which were called monumental failures of the UPA government. This government has actually picked up and made even bigger, and therefore the question will be asked whether a lot of the political criticism was mere opportunism by a party that is sitting on the opposition benches at the time.
I don't really want to make this a political debate, but a few things here. One, if we take the larger picture, every government has built on the previous government. Dr. Manmohan Singh's government built on a lot of the achievements of the Vajpayee government. The growth spurt we saw in the UPA 1 years was to a large degree because of work the Vajpayee government had done. The growth couldn't have started 2 months after Dr. Singh became Prime Minister. Obviously, the foundations were laid earlier. If growth tapered in UPA 2, to some degree, what the missed opportunities of UPA 1 are also responsible, without taking away from Dr. Singh's qualities and achievements. In terms of Aadhaar, yes, Aadhaar is an excellent case study of how there's been continuity. The idea first came from Mr. Advani as Home Minister and Deputy Prime Minister to have an ID card. It was taken forward and given a biometric design by Dr. Manmohan Singh's government, and many Aadhaar cards, including my Aadhaar card, were issued in the UPA years. But do remember that when the UPA demitted office in 2014, the enabling legislation for Aadhaar had not been passed. It had not been a priority. It had lapsed. It had not been passed. And therefore, we had biometric identities of some 600 million Indians, but we could do nothing about it. It took the next government, Mr. Narendra Modi's government, to pass that legislation and take it forward. So to praise Dr. Manmohan Singh is a very good thing. We don't need to knock others to praise him.
Sure. And Sanjay Jha, also going back and looking at his very significant term as finance minister from the early 90s to the mid 90s and the economic liberalization that he brought in, that really in many ways took India from the old India to the new, and that would probably rank as maybe many would say that was the height of his competence as finance minister. That was what he was ideally suited to do technocratically, and those are unarguably some of his most significant achievements.
Yeah, Rahul, once again, let me tell you that that was what you call as a seminal breakthrough moment in India's trajectory, both political, social and economic, and brought us to the high table of, frankly, the G20s of the world. But, the one thing that a lot of people probably miss once again is the fact that it worked, right? I mean, we all saw that India benefited from more liberal policies, change in trade, removal of the license Raj, more foreign direct investment, etc. But it could have also boomeranged. There are critics of Dr. Manmohan Singh who will also tell you that did we buckle under the pressure of the Washington consensus? Were we pushed to the corner, leaving no choice but to do, and it became like a virtue, making a virtue out of a necessity, etc. And the fact that down the line, it did create income inequality, although it lifted people above the poverty line. So I think there are going to be arguments both sides. I agree with Ashok that you cannot have an unalloyed success. Everyone is going to experience failure. Politics, in life, everywhere, we see setbacks. But I agree with you that end of day, that is what is called as the spectacular moment of change, which is why 1991 will be discussed forever in India's story. But the other part, between 2004 to 14, India saw through the Great Recession. I remember being just coming out of my banking career. It was devastation what happened after Lehman Brothers and the mortgage crisis. And the fact that we still, during that 10-year period, registered a growth rate of 7.8% and lifted 270 million people out of poverty at the same time. And that is the model for India that Dr. Manmohan Singh really created. That you need capital, you need industry, you need liberalization, you need privatization, you need to be global. And yet you need to work for the people.
Stay with me for a moment.